Hi, we're here at BYU Idaho. I'm David Palmer, and this is Brad Jensen. And he's going to talk us through an analysis that he did. Brad, before we get started, maybe you can explain what's the overarching research question that you dealt with and why did you choose that?
Well, it kind of stemmed from a curiosity this semester. I didn't have one specific question, but I found myself quite a lot throughout the semester kind of looking at housing data. Either for a class, I was taking a stats class today that had to do with a Kaggle assignment to do with that. But I also found myself looking at Zillow quite a lot, looking at just houses and apartments around the country. I don't think there was anything specifically that drew me there.
Okay.
But looking for a project, I realized since I was already looking so deeply into housing, I might as well continue that, which brought up the idea that with this project, I'm looking at rental data for Zillow, that company that I was looking at already.
Awesome. Let me just zoom in a little bit here so we can see it better. And then, data rarely comes in. You mentioned you're probably getting it from Kaggle or from Zillow,
This
I
is
mean. Okay. And things rarely come in the way you'd want them. What was the biggest headache that you came across as you tried to prep the data for analysis? And then maybe you can show us how you overcame that.
I think the biggest issue with this data set specifically was that the data was elongated. So each column was its own separate date, and then every single row was like a price for a certain rent.
Mm.
So what I had to do in order to, use that data properly, I had to pivot it, which was really annoying because I had to learn how to do
Yeah, go
string R.
ahead.
Yeah, I can show you right here in my code. I've got a little big chunk kind of filtering out certain cities, capital cities, but right here you can see I pivoted it based off of the string that was already within it. So at the beginning of every string, when I loaded it in, there was an X, which was really annoying to deal with. So I had to use the string R to get rid of that X and find where each of the numbers were and, mutate it to be a readable date.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And then maybe you can talk us through a couple of your favorite graphs or graphs that seem to answer your research question best.
Yeah. Ultimately, I stuck with the graphs that I loved the most. So this first one, I just picked three different capital cities, and it kind of shows the typical rent of houses over time, specifically typical, not average. That's what the data set was going for. They have
Okay.
this whole formula.
That's their term,
Yeah,
typical, not yours.
yeah,
Okay.
not my turn. But what I did after this is before inflation adjustment. I wanted to see what that looked like in modern day terms, but the inflation adjustment doesn't go past 2024. So this
Oh,
is up to 2024 numbers.
okay.
But you can kind of see the difference between the first and the second graph where all the lines kind of bump up a little bit more. And it really shows this interesting trend of every single year, the rent prices rise and then lower again over and over and over and over, which is super interesting. And then I've noted it on the graph too, is right around 2022, the rent actually started decreasing again. And I don't know quite yet what caused that problem, but I would love to continue some further research trying to figure out, what do these humps mean and why did the rent go down?
Is this monthly data, daily data?
I believe it's monthly data.
So do you know which month that is? Is it the beginning of the year, the summer, the
So the
or
bottom on the left side is the beginning of the year, and then the top, the apex, is the middle of the year, and then the other
I
end.
guess I was asking if those dips and rises happen at the same time each year.
Oh, sorry, I haven't checked that yet. No.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's great. So what would you recommend to, it looks like your audience may be a potential renter or someone interested in real
Mhm.
estate. What would you recommend to them?
Honestly, just looking at this graph, I would recommend that they start renting either at the beginning or at the end of the year, because that seems when renting prices are cheaper.
Okay.
Specifically more towards contract-based rentals, probably, because usually when you sign a contract, that's a strict set price over the year.
So you are thinking that these dips happen at regular intervals then,
Mhm.
that at the beginning or around January, December, I
The
guess.
prices are lower.
Yeah, okay. And I guess lastly, what would you do if you had another few hours with this data set
Um,
or with other data sets
yeah,
on this topic?
I kind of mentioned it a little bit in this assignment, but I had the idea to try and connect it to Airbnb data. They also have public data, but their data sets are vastly different, and I can't really wrangle them to be together. But if I had more time, I would love to compare the difference between the Zillow rentals and the Airbnb rentals because it's kind of like long term, short term, and see how the prices
Hmm.
vary.
Yeah, great ideas. Thank you for sharing. I guess we'll give you If you want to talk through this at all.
Yeah, this was a simple graph that I threw together. I pinpointed all the capital cities and then I kind of just showed the typical rent. I averaged all the rent for the cities within that state to show like in this area, this is the typical rent.
All right. Well, thank you, Brad. Best of luck going forward.
Thank you.